Views and opinions of any of the guests of After Hours AM are not necessarily the views and opinions of After Hours AM, its hosts, its staff, or any of its affiliates.
Welcome to the After Hours program.
Are you
Now broadcasting live from the After Hours AM studio, Joel Sturgis and Eric Olson.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this special Christmas edition. Yes, another Christmas edition of After Hours AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me,
Eric Olson.
Oh, Eric, you sound so... May I just say this for a second? You sound so sexy. On your new microphone. Hey, man, you sound great.
I feel sexy.
Do you? You should. You should do a little Right Said Fred. I'm too sexy for my mic. Too sexy for...
Too sexy for my mind. Too sexy for my mind. Too sexy. I have had a daughter and over twice.
You did that pretty good. Did you ever sing that song when you were doing cover band stuff?
No, but
No?
I did back in the DJ days.
Yeah?
I would sing along with that sucker.
I bet you did. Right Said Fred, ripping it out there. I'm too sexy for the show. No, we're not. No, we're not too sexy for this show.
We are not too sexy.
No, we're on the verge, just not quite there. But
we're way more than sexy enough.
yes. But speaking of rock and roll, Right Said Fred, all that kind of good stuff. Did you see the new Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has been announced? The inductees.
I am in Cleveland, my friend. I surely.
So you're all over that.
I'm at least partly
A
so.
couple of them, I was shocked that they weren't already in, to be honest with you.
I say that every year.
Yeah. I mean, like Deep Purple, I thought for sure they would have been in already.
I can't imagine, that they weren't. But I'll tell you, now they are. So that's good.
Come on.
This is kind of, let's be honest, this is kind of a retroactive catch-up class.
Yeah.
There are bands in here who could have been in a long time ago, like certainly, obviously, Deep Purple, you mentioned. Steve Miller. How could Steve Miller have not been in
Well,
yet?
I was shocked because, come on, some people call me a space cowboy.
Well, and the Steve
Some
Miller
call me
band, which
Bandit
goes all the way
of
back to
Love.
the late 60s.
It does. I was just shocked that he wasn't already in the Hall of Fame, to be completely honest with you. And the band was great. I mean, they were way ahead of their time. I mean, like, look at Fly Like an Eagle, all those songs that they came out with that really you hear everywhere to this day.
Jungle Love. Yeah, you know what he did in the 70s when his real peak heyday, and he had some hits in the 80s too, but when he really came to his own and became an enormous seller, he was already quite popular, but he became an enormous seller in the 70s. What he was able to do is maintain his rootsy feel and kind of a simplicity, bluesy instrumentation, but... or arrangements, but he added in electronics and he used synthesizers and he kept it fresh.
Yeah.
And so he put a new sound together that was kind of a neo-retro kind of thing in the 70s, and it still holds up to this very day.
It does. You cannot go to a sporting event without hearing like Fly Like an Eagle, Jungle Love, and I mean a lot of times in the background, even to this day.
All over. I mean, where would classic rock radio be without, frankly, all these bands other
Yeah.
than NWA.
Well,
who's
yeah.
our
No.
token rap representative. You got to have one.
Well, yeah. No, they're not the first to be inducted, though. I think Run
Oh, no.
DMC was in first.
Several
they?
are in. There's
Okay.
Public Enemy, Run DMC.
Yep.
Who else?
Do you think that the movie Straight Outta Compton helped them get in?
It didn't hurt.
You know,
Yes, I'm sure it did.
Do you think that they said, well, okay, they got a movie out now. I suppose we should really get them in there. I didn't see the movie. Did you ever see the movie?
I have not seen it.
No.
I've heard really good things about it, though. They said it's a well done movie, and that they kind of remind me. There's a number of artists, like, for example, the Sex Pistols, who really only had one amazing, overwhelming, all-time classic album. But that album was so big and so influential that it's enough to get them in. It would be like this. If a baseball player had one season that was so astonishingly overwhelming that they got in to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Imagine that.
And that's
I can't, but that's what this is like.
Now, has there been any one-hit wonders that made it in? Simply
No.
because, okay, so, like, is the Clash in? Because I just heard the other day on TV, there's a video game commercial for Assassin's Creed, and then they used, in the background, London Calling, which you don't hear that a lot out there anymore, that song. But I was curious if the Clash were even in, because I was shocked looking at this list, this roster. Chicago, oh my gosh, how are they not in yet? How is Chicago not in?
It was inexplicable. And when I interviewed 3-4 members of Chicago, maybe just 2 years ago or so, thereabouts, over on the Storytellers over on Blog Talk. And we talked about it. They weren't bitter. You could tell it bothered them. There was no question about it. But I think they figured eventually, look, with the number of hits that they have had, hit singles and hit albums, and their astonishing longevity. There's another band that started in the 60s, and they're still going.
Yeah, they are, aren't
tour
they?
every summer.
Yeah, yeah, they do.
And
But
they draw amazingly. And really, they were quite innovative as far as the use of horns. They were the first real rock and roll horn band, and they were extremely successful. They were musically adventuresome. And early on, they really rocked when they still had Terry Kath before he killed himself.
Well, yeah, then they have
playing
that.
Russian roulette like a dumbass.
Yeah, I remember hearing that story about him. But, like Deep Purple, right? Smoke on the Water. Who doesn't know that song on guitar? At least the opening riff.
People who don't own a guitar.
People
who've never picked up a guitar.
Yeah, that
play.
is like the first song that a good guitar teacher will teach you is Smoke on the Water. It's so easy. It's so easy, it kind of builds that that confidence in yourself once you get riff down, because then you feel like you can do other things. And it's
Richie Blackmore,
it's just
so great hard rock / metal. And later in his career, Richie, he's been doing kind of Renaissance type music with his wife. Isn't that
interesting? Because all that whole riff is just power chord G. That's it.
Oh yeah,
that's it.
Yep. Now there's a number of bands who absolutely I think should be in, who were on the ballot this year, some for the first time, who didn't get in. Can you believe the Cars are not in?
See, I can't believe that. No, the Cars. I've always liked the Cars.
I love them.
They were awesome. They still are today. Boy, they just got so many hits. Like, Who'll Take You Home? That was one of them, if I'm not mistaken. And then they had, what was the big one? What was the big hit that they had in the 80s?
Well, they had the comeback album, so then they had Magic.
Yeah.
And the ballad with poor Benny Orr, who died quite young, I think late 30s. Who'll Take You Home.
Yes, exactly. That's the song I was thinking of.
Back to the first album, Just What I Needed. I mean, every one of, they have like 5 albums in a row that are really solid.
Now, there's anyone that's listening from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame tonight.
Rock and Roll.
Oh, I know, the Rock and Hole. Come on down. You can have a drink at the Rock and Hole, your favorite watering hole down in Cleveland. No, but at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Get the Cars in next year. Come on, give them some love.
Oh, and here's one. This is probably the biggest band in terms of sales, in terms of long-term popularity, in terms of concert draw, who is not in. Yeah. And that band is Yes. Can you believe Yes is not in the Rock and Roll?
No, I cannot. I thought for sure they would have been in already. I mean, I'm
not even like a big proggy kind of guy.
No,
but if you're going to have any proggy band in, you would have to have Yes in.
Well, it's about time Cheap Trick gets in, though.
Oh, I agree. I love.
I mean, they're you know what? Midwest always represent coming to us from Wisconsin. Come on.
Rockford, Illinois.
Yep. Eau Claire, Wisconsin as well. They claim that sometimes is their home, but Rockford, Illinois is the epicenter of Cheap Trick. It's about time the Midwest gets a little love.
Yeah, I got a great Cheap Trick story. Because they were local way, way back in the 70s when I was in college, my girlfriend at that time, good old Liz, who I've, over the last 5 years or so, become reacquainted with. Still haven't seen her in person, but that's the glory of social media. That's been fun. Hi, Liz. How are you? She may be listening. So she lived in Peoria, Illinois, and I was visiting her in the summer. And there was a club, just on the outskirts of town, just like there used to be bars everywhere, right? And we head out to the bar to watch Cheap Trick. And in Illinois, the drinking time was much later than Ohio. I mean, I think they were open till like 4 in the morning.
Whoa. Wow.
You could drink till 4 in the morning.
That's unheard of. I mean,
these days it is, other than maybe, New York.
Yeah, New Orleans, 24 hours, 7 days a week. But I know here it's 2 a.m., and when it turned from 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. around these parts, bars were like, hallelujah, over that 1 extra hour of business.
Yeah, it's 2 a.m. here in Ohio. So we go to this bar. It's kind of, like I said, it's kind of rural. It's out on the outskirts. It's outside of town. We get there, big parking lot. It's a big place. It was not a large circumference, but it was like 4 tiers. So you're up above looking down at the band. It was super cool place.
Interesting.
Right. So we're going in, right? And of course there's a cover charge. Not a lot. I don't know what it was. Maybe, $5. I mean, this was the 70s. And Cheap Trick was a local band. I mean, they were a big national band, but they were also local. So
sure,
it was cheap as hell, So
good time.
I get my wallet out, right, and I give the bouncer, the guy at the door, a $20 bill. I say, "I'm sorry, this is the smallest I have." The guy, he goes, "No problem." He gives me change for $100.
What?
I give him a 20.
I love his exchange rate.
He gives me change for $100. I about soil myself.
Yeah, because especially back in the 70s, that was meaningful money.
It was a lot of money.
Oh yeah, that was like the power bill right there.
It was very significant. It was party money.
Oh man! Now I bet you got pretty well lit up that night off that $100 change, didn't you?
So, yes, we drank liberally and had a great time and saw the band. I think I even caught one of his picks. Rick Nielsen tosses off picks by the dozen at every show. He tosses his guitar picks and just keeps pulling new ones off of his mic stand.
Yep.
So I think I even caught one of the picks. We had a great time, so fun. It was just kind of like the perfect evening. We're leaving. It's 4 in the morning. I get out there, and we're actually among the few cars remaining because we had stuck it out to the bitter end. Yeah. I get to my car. The whole left side is smashed.
Oh!
Instant karma.
Yeah.
It
karma
was. Because I kept the frickin' money and didn't give it back.
Yep. Hey, speaking of karma, have you ever seen someone maybe be a little arrogant or a little cocky, and karma makes them trip and fall or something like that? Have you ever seen instant karma at work?
Oh, many times.
Isn't it great when you see that instant karma just happen?
It is great when it is not me.
Well, that is true. You got to be careful. You don't want temp karma, because if you laugh when karma's doing its work, sometimes it looks back at you and says, "Yeah, you think that was funny, huh? Watch this."
Now it's your turn.
Yes,
bud.
how often is that? That's happened to me more times than I can count over my lifetime. But yes, sometimes when you have a windfall, it's almost like the universe has to somehow even itself out.
Well, and you can imagine that it was a lot more expensive to get the car fixed
Yes, than $100.
than the extra what $70
Yeah.
that I got back.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, really, it was the universe teaching maybe you a lesson at that time. Give
And here
the
I am
change
telling
back.
the story many years later. So obviously it made an impact.
Well, do you know the entire roster who is getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Yeah, this class is very small. It is
I noticed
just
that.
Cheap Trick, Chicago,
Yep.
Deep Purple, Steve Miller, and NWA.
Yep. Yeah, that was it. I was surprised to see it so small because, I mean, last year we had some Rock and Roll Hall of Famers right here on After Hours.
Absolutely.
And we had a lot of fun
It was a
talking to
large class. And yeah, I mean, we talked about that show. My daughter and I
Yep.
went on.
Yeah,
went on
can
the
you believe
radio
it?
and we
Yeah,
talked
yeah.
about it and had a great time. In fact, I just heard that show when I was, clicked on our page. We have the ever rotating. If you ever want to hear any specific show, of course, but just want to sample what we do 24 hours a day, all you got to do is head on over to our site and just go to americas-most-haunted.com and just click on After Hours.
And
or
we're
you
right
can still
there.
just go to After Hours AM and you will be forwarded to our
That's-
current page.
yes.
And it plays round the clock.
Yeah, and I want to thank all the listeners, by the way, for giving us the gaudy numbers that we've been getting lately, and I want to thank everyone that listens and tunes in and makes this show go. I
Absolutely.
don't think we thank them enough because really, we were pleasantly surprised at the response of this show recently, and thank you guys so much. You guys definitely make it worth it.
Well, I think we're back in the groove. You guys have heard the story. We had to take a couple months off.
Oh,
in the
yeah,
summer.
we
had
had,
all
I
kinds
don't
of
know.
issues, family stuff going on, weird health issues, just all kinds of stuff, one thing after another. So we just said, look, we're not going to fight it. We're just going to take a little time off.
Take
And
a
then
little
we came
time off
back.
for us.
We started easing back into it throughout October and November, and I think we're really back in the groove, and we are firing on all cylinders.
And we're not going
And by the
anywhere.
way, you should sign up, my friends, for our newsletter. Again, just go to America's-Most Haunted, America's-Most
There you go.
haunted.com and sign up for the newsletter. And that goes out every Friday. It gives you info on what we're doing on the site, new articles, and what we're doing, of course, on the show, social media, anything we have going on in our professional lives is in there.
That's right.
And
Sometimes
there's
a
even
personal.
pictures of us.
There is. You get to see how beautiful Eric truly is.
I'm a rather astonishingly pretty individual.
You are. I'm more
For
of the
my
rugged
age.
of the two. I'm more of the beer drinking, kind of rough housing of the two, looks wise.
You're an outdoorsman.
I am. I am
You're a
definitely.
man of the plain.
Well, I try to be. I try to be a good steward of the land when
You
I can
are.
be. But, I was moving along because that's just awkward, man. Moving along, I was going to the odd news section. And do you have Christmas parties, Eric? Do you ever throw any or do you ever go to any?
We've had all this strange things going on in our lives over the last couple years, so we have thrown fewer parties than we usually would. Normally, in the normal course of things, we do throw a few parties over the course of the year. Actually, my wife is at her company Christmas party right
Oh,
now.
okay. So she's actually having fun. And, at the company Christmas parties, there's always that guy, too.
Oh, man.
There's always that guy.
I've been that guy more than once.
Well, it does happen. But this guy here, you know what the elf on the shelf is, right? Are you familiar with the elf on the shelf?
Oh, my God, yes.
Okay, there is a guy in Boston, he's a Boston resident area, that you can actually hire to be a living elf on the shelf to watch over your home this Christmas season. A Massachusetts man posted a listing Craigslist offering to attend holiday parties dressed as the elf on the shelf and stare emptily at the guests for $100 an hour. He says, I specialize in holiday-themed events. either yours or unexpected friends, but I also offer contracted private investigation and babysitter services. The man who identifies themselves as whatever you want my name to be wrote that he is looking forward to coming to your party.
Well, he's he's an eclectic individual.
How weird would that be to see a 6-foot guy sitting on your mantle just staring, just staring
Go
off.
the whole hour without blinking.
Well, $100 an hour. Heck, I would do that for $100 an hour. Why not?
But is it physically possible?
I don't know. And they show the picture of this guy. He's about the size, if I had to guess, about Will Ferrell size. I mean, so he's a tall gentleman.
He's a large elf.
He's a very large elf on the shelf. And he'll do it for $100, stare and creep out your guests. I don't know.
Maybe he wears fake eyes.
Ooh, I didn't think about that. Now that would be smart.
Because now you're not drying your eyes out and ruining your eyesight and making yourself miserable.
Yeah.
Plus, you're not having to look at the idiots at the party.
Yes. Well, that's true. I didn't even bring that together. If you got the glasses, you could just sit there, do whatever you wanted for an hour or 2 or 3. I don't think $100 an hour. Heck, hire me for 8 hours. I don't care. I would sit there and just creep your friends out. I mean, I already do that to my kids. I go, I try to creep them out. It doesn't work, though. Scary stories and stuff doesn't work on them anymore.
Well, they're used to you.
Yeah, it just doesn't have the same punch. I tried to tell the Krampus tale the other night, and after the show, and not a one of them didn't even flinch at the tale.
Nothing, huh?
Nothing. Not even oh my God, is that true? Nothing. I got nothing out of these jaded little kids.
Goodness.
It's just horrible. It's horrible. I think they're just too cynical for their own good.
They are. It happens. I'll tell you. I got older kids, have the 2 adults, and then the just turned 12. So good job, Alex.
Well, speaking of a 12-year-old, Alex, by the way, happy birthday. Well, belated, of course, but happy birthday. But I was in the odd news section again, and of course that's UPI odd news. Go on over there, take a peek. But a 12-year-old in Florida has been arrested 20 times.
That is not a good 12-year-old.
In St. Petersburg. The boy, he got arrested now for stealing an 89-year-old woman's car at a Chevron gas station.
And he's 12.
He's 12. Okay, I understand treating these kids like kid gloves. I get that. But when do we actually, really go after them?
I would say after the 20th arrest.
I would say so because and that has been a long source of contention with a lot of people that we're too easy on kids now. That they can pretty much do whatever they want and really face no consequences of any kind. And, and then there's the one camp saying, well, we got to love the kids and take care of them. Then there's the other camp that says, throw away the damn key. But, I think with this kid 20 times, I think he should face some time.
Something is seriously wrong. I mean, I'm sure there are issues with his home life. There would have to be. And I'm sure there are mitigating circumstances of some sort. And, of course, I don't know what the 20 offenses are.
Could it be just that he's a bad kid, though?
You certainly could say, as far as society is concerned, he's a bad kid because he's causing all that trouble.
Is
a menace to society.
Oh, exactly. Isn't there just a certain point where, you kind of stop saying, oh, well, maybe you had a hard life or this. And you just turn around and say after 20 times, no, it's you, buddy. It's you.
Well, I guess really ultimately what you try to do, or ideally what you do, is both. So in other words, you do try to understand the origins of this behavior. Why does this person behave this way? What kind of offenses are they committing? Where might this be coming from? Where might this be going? So that's the one side of it. But on the other side of it, you got to stop it. Yeah,
well, you do. You just got to. I mean, 20 times, though, and he's only 12.
It's absurd.
Come on. I mean, it's really crazy, but I would like to end this little news segment on a positive note. Secret Santa pays off $79,000 worth of Walmart layaway bills.
I saw that one.
Isn't that
is
nice?
Amazing. Yes.
Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Customers at Pennsylvania Walmart have a reason to be merry this Christmas after Secret Santa paid off $79,000 worth of complete strangers layaway bills. Man, there is not enough of that love out there, is there, like that?
No. Obviously, that person had to have some money, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, not everyone's got $79,000 in their seat cushion.
But I'll tell you, that person still had to choose to do that, and they still had to have the heart. And it's a wonderful thing. People should share. People who have should share.
Yeah, and it's crazy because this time of year, you hear the craziest things being put in the red kettle. Everything from diamond rings to rare coins to, I mean, people really do show their best side during this time of year. I would think, because I want to think anyway. But then, there's also the bad side, the people that come to your door and steal your crap from you. But by and large, I really think that people are more giving this time of year, obviously, and it's kind of nice that we hear stuff like that.
Absolutely. I think for the most part, again, all the things we talk about kind of come down to statistics. There's always going to be X percentage of people who just don't get it. They don't fit within society. They don't want to fit within society. They don't care about fitting.
No, but what I'm going to do as far as fitting in society is I'm going to contact this elf on the shelf guy. And I'm going to try to get him for next week.
Will he travel?
No, just to come on the radio.
Oh, how fun would that?
And just ask him, what the heck you doing, man? I'm going to do that. I'm going to do some digging, and I'll do my darndest to get him on the air with us.
And you know what? We need to remind everyone, by the way, I'm glad you brought that up, because next Thursday, our usual evening, is actually Christmas Eve. We will be doing next week's show on Wednesday.
Yeah, we're
and
moving.
The following week, as it always goes, it's the same day of the week as Christmas Eve. New Year's Eve is also on Thursday.
Yeah. You or I, or both, maybe just too inebriated to do a radio show.
By 9 o'clock Eastern Time on New Year's Eve, on a typical New Year's Eve, I would have been drinking perhaps some.
Yeah.
So, yes, we don't want to do that. So the next 2 weeks, we're doing the show. We want to do it. We're excited about it. I know we're going to do a year-end wrap-up on that New Year's Eve show. I'm not sure what else we're going to do, but we're going to talk about the year. It'll be lots of fun. It'll be festive and whatnot. But remember, it's Wednesday night each of the next 2 weeks at 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central.
Exactly. I'm also posting this story of the real living elf on the shelf to my Facebook wall if you want to peruse his Craigslist post. Go ahead. Maybe you can hire the elf on the shelf. And if you do, tell us how it goes.
I suppose, have we mentioned, we did at the beginning of the show, that we have the amazing Gerry Bowler on, and that's only now a half hour away, and we'll be talking about all kinds of weird Christmas traditions. We covered Krampus, I think, quite well.
Yes.
Krampus and his ilk last week on the show, but there's all kinds of other odd and weird and strange and even frightening Christmas traditions.
Yeah, it's really weird. I mean, like the Yule log. I mean, who would have thought that there was a strange tradition behind that?
The Yule log is what strikes me as particularly strange is it becomes anthropomorphized. In other words, it takes on a life of its own.
Yes.
And the Yule log itself is thought then to be able to bestow good luck and fortune, even protect the household from lightning, all kinds of wild things.
It's like a superhero. In
log form.
In log form. I did see the movie Ant-Man. By the way, that's worth watching. So, I mean, kind of like your own little super force there. They'll take care of you.
The Yule log.
The Yule log. Who knew?
Have many, many weird Christmas traditions.
I did ask
on the site.
Well, I was thinking about getting a mistletoe belt buckle, but I was informed that would be in bad taste. So, I don't know. I get all sorts of funny looks when I have those ideas.
You know who I bet wears one of those? The living elf on the shelf.
I bet he does. I bet he does. I bet you he wears the mistletoe belt buckle.
Or if he's feeling particularly if he's not feeling amorous, he's feeling more feisty. He may flip that belt buckle around to the back.
This is true. Now, I didn't think about that.
Is what I think of you, and walk away.
That is, wow. Well, we gotta. Wow, that's a bad visual. We gotta run a break, everybody. We'll be right back right after this with your America's Most Haunted headlines. Don't go anywhere.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to report a bear sighting.
Location.
My backyard.
Oh, your backyard. Try telling a bear that.
I did, and this bear talked back.
Talking bear, that's rich.
No, wait, it was Smokey Bear.
Smokey. Why didn't you say so?
I did say so.
Continue.
I was burning yard waste.
No, boy.
He told me to burn legally and responsibly, and to remember that if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave.
And as always, he's right. You know, 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans. That means 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented.
Yeah, I know that now.
Thanks to me.
Actually, thanks to Smokey.
As usual, the talking bear gets all the credit. Get your Smokey on. Always burn responsibly and contact your local fire department for open burning regulations. Because 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented. Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at SmokeyBear.com. Only you can prevent wildfires.
I'm a mom. And just like millions of other women, that's why I own guns. We're responsible, we're law-abiding, and we're everything that makes America strong. Every day we're willing to use a firearm to defend our families. But the media will never tell those stories. If a mom puts a gun to the face of a home-invading thug and makes him run for his life, the story gets buried. But if she's unarmed and murdered, the cameras will be at the scene before the police. It's time for moms like me to speak out. We are the majority. We demand the freedom to defend our families. And we challenge the media to tell the truth about our rights. I'm the National Rifle Association of America, and I'm freedom's safest place.
Bud Light presents Real Men of Genius.
Real Men of Genius.
Today we salute you, Mr. Eggnog Inventor.
Mr. Eggnog Inventor.
For years you toiled away, nog after nog, cauliflower nog, trout nog, the ill-advised pork nog.
What the heck is nog?
Until one day, it hit you right in the face. Raw eggs, heavy cream, and a 5-pound bag of granulated sugar.
Recipe for disaster.
Now that's refreshment. Kinda like a protein shake, only disgusting.
Oh!
So crack open an ice-cold Bud Light, Mr. Eggnog Inventor. And while you're at it, crack open another bucket of eggs for your nog.
Mr. Eggnog Inventor.
Bud Light Beer, Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis, Missouri.
Hey everybody, this is Joel Sturgis, and did you know that After Hours AM and America's Most Haunted have a great new website out there? You're going to want to visit America's-Most-Haunted.com. There you can get all the new content from all the writers for America's Most Haunted, as well as the great haunted headlines everybody loves each and every week, as well as catch After Hours AM live right there, along with podcasts, past shows, and get to know your hosts, as well as contact us all in one stop. You're going to love it. You're not going to want to go anywhere else. So come to America's-Most-Haunted.com today. Do you have a question for our guest tonight? Don't feel like calling the show? Not a problem. Email those questions to afterhoursam@gmail.com. Again, that's afterhoursam@gmail.com. And welcome back to After Hours AM. And we are going to be covering, yes, we are. We're going to be covering the ever favorite, ever awesome America's Most Haunted Headlines, brought to you proudly by Eric Olson and, of course, myself, Joel Sturgis.
Right on.
Look at that, right? Huh? I almost sound professional and stuff there, didn't I?
You had me fooled.
I bet I did. I sometimes have everyone else fooled, too, and that's the great part.
Then you know you're clicking on all cylinders.
That's right. Once you can fool everybody.
I love my new microphone.
I hear that.
I'm loving it.
Tell me more, Barry White.
I'm loving it because my mic stand is sitting on my chair next to my crotch.
Okay, that's a little more info that I think the listeners needed to hear.
Yeah, no, it's just it's where it has to be because it's not.
And we assure you, he does not plan on having any more offspring. So,
no, I really don't.
Grandchildren
I would welcome.
So, anyhow, moving it right along from your microphone in your crotch.
Yeah, let's move on. All right, so let's head on over to Twitter, my friends. Let's go to the America's Most Haunted account. It's at AM Haunted. And, of course, we're talking about Weird Christmas, so we'll just kind of gloss over this one. But my latest Weird Christmas story, which, of course, resides on our website, but I'm referencing from the Twitter feed, is why do werewolves run amok on Christmas?
Ooh, why do they?
Well, I think we'll get into more of that with Gerry, but essentially it's a holdover, like many other traditions, from pre-Christian times. Mm-hmm. And it's more that it's the end of the year, and it's more that it's the solstice, because people believed that all of the various monster-type creatures, which would include werewolves, are more active and busy at that time of the year. So that's part of it. There's a few more specific traditions, and I think we should get into that with Gerry, because I got a lot of that information from him and his encyclopedia. Coming up, a local story or local connection right here. I'm very near Kent State University here in southeastern Cleveland area, and what is she? An epidemiology, is that the word?
I do believe so.
Epidemics.
Yep.
She is one of those, and she teaches at Kent. And she is also a member of the Zombie Research Society.
I was looking at that. I mean, do they really need a research society?
Well, heck yeah. Oh. What she does as an epidemiologist is she is kind of using the popularity of zombies, and this is what a lot of other scientists are doing, including the CDC.
Yeah, yes, I remember CDC came out with that great big zombie apocalypse awareness thing, and then of course, you got to be ready for the zombies. You never know, so get your water ready. Yeah, that whole thing.
Exactly. So it's really about preparedness for any kind of emergency.
Yes.
But in this case, it's specifically about infection. So her paper is on the spread of zombie infection, but it would apply to any viral outbreak. So it's very interesting. Go check that out. And again, get to it.
Okay, do you think,
the Twitter feed.
Before we move along, do you think, Eric, is there any chance that zombies one day will roam the earth?
I think the only thing that is plausible is the kind of zombies of 28 days.
Like a really rapid rabies virus that affects you
like
within minutes.
Super vicious type of rabies where the people don't necessarily lose their cognitive function, but they can't control it anymore, and they've just become rabid, insane individuals who run around. They're not necessarily eating people out of some necessity. They're just
doing it because they're mean.
They're just utterly crazy and maniacal.
Yep, maniacal. Kind of like Mr. Burns off The Simpsons.
Yes, but much more active.
Yes, well, he's not very active. But that's the thing. I've often thought that, and I've talked to a couple of people from the CDC in the past in the show. In fact, one of the writers is a scientist for The Walking Dead. And we had him on the show. We should get him again. He was a great interview. And he was saying, really, in his estimation, in his research, you're exactly correct. it would have to be like a rabies, but the problem with rabies is the incubation time is so long.
Right.
That right now, it just, it would take them a month to turn into a zombie.
The other possibility might be some sort of crazy drug angle, like for a while there, we're seeing all those
K2,
bizarre,
man, they're ripping each other's faces off.
Yeah, bizarre outbursts. There's never any predicting what might happen to people who are abusing very strange
Yes,
drugs.
exactly. Just stay away from the bath salts, folks. Thank you.
Moving to the natural world, which is always fascinating in itself, there's this really amazing area down in Antarctica, super hard to get to. It's called the Erebus Ice Tongue because it is shaped like a tongue.
Mm-hmm.
And it has some of the oddest ice formations and caves on Earth. And it's the combination of glacier, it's a combination of ocean, so sometimes, it's not completely frozen. So it changes, and you get these really delicate, interesting, intricate, sculpture-like looking ice formations. And we have pictures right there. And
it looks awesome.
Click through to even more pictures, and that one comes from Atlas Obscura, which we have referred to in the past. Did you hear about this miracle communion wafer in Utah?
I heard something about it. I kind of glanced over it in the media, but yes, I did. Okay,
not a miracle.
No. What was it behind it? I didn't get that far, but I thought it was like mold or something.
Yeah, it's a bread mold.
So they were like, "Oh my gosh, it's the blood of Christ," and which of course I'm not poking fun at anyone that does communion because I do it as well.
On one level, it is the blood.
Well, it is. I'm a good Lutheran boy, just like you are. So yes, it is. But is that particular red blotch the blood of Christ
from Jesus? No,
no,
it's a mold.
It's a mold. Sorry, folks. Sorry.
So I admire this diocese, which is actually a Catholic diocese. I didn't even know they had Catholics in Utah. I guess they have a handful.
Well, they got a few.
So they did the research, though. They didn't just take it at face value. And they did the research and did the testing, scientific testing, and found that, yes, in fact, that particular wafer and apparently some more were tainted with bread mold, and that was the explanation.
So you're not going to want to eat that particular wafer.
No, you're not.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. You don't be partaking of the bread mold.
Continuing with wonders of the natural world, scroll down to that double sunset. How amazing is that?
I'm looking at that. I've never seen one of those.
Of course, it's an optical illusion, but it, for all the world, appears to be two suns setting.
It is. Well, I've never seen that before.
It's a beautiful orangey sky.
What is there has to be some type of mirror thing going on in our atmosphere to cause it, obviously, but that is really pretty.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
It's from Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe, yes.
Jah want to liberate Zimbabwe, as Bob Marley said back when he was alive. And so it's a very rare sunset. It's only seen when the sun is low in the sky, so it would be winter, and likely a result. Well, no, that doesn't make sense because that's the southern hemisphere, so I take that back. Anyway, likely a result of reflection by ice crystals.
Really? So it's ice in the atmosphere. That would make sense. That would make a lot of sense because we know that it's reflected ice crystals. It's reflected rainbows.
Exactly.
So it just stands to reason it would do the same thing.
Absolutely.
Ooh,
all right, heading way off into space, back to Mars. We talk about Mars a lot. God, all this activity regarding Mars.
I signed up to go to Mars.
Did you?
And they didn't want me. They didn't want me.
I don't think they want people with kids.
No. Well, that and they didn't. They figured that radio hosts just didn't have what it takes.
And you may be too old.
Yeah. Well, that too. Yeah. I am 41. They're looking for the youngsters and no kids so they can populate Mars. Gotta populate the Mars. I tried. I talked to them. They said, no, A, you're too old. B, really, what would you do there?
Broadcast.
Yes, let me be the first show coming to you live directly from Mars. After Hours AM.
So speaking of Mars, there is a really fascinating. One of my areas of interest, which I'm only interested in sometimes, but among my other majors way back in school days, I was a political science major. So I am interested in politics. I'm interested in government. And really great story on the BBC talking about, okay, so we're going to Mars. We're going to set up a colony one way or another, somehow, some way, someone in the relatively near future. I mean, certainly within 50 years. There will be people on Mars.
Oh, yes.
And so how should they be governed? Should they be controlled by one Earth government? Should they, a country, in other words? Or should there be some sort of more like a UN type situation?
Well, you would think that we'd have more than just Americans on Mars should we colonize. Okay, so, that being said, I would probably lean towards the UN way of thinking, because obviously we're going to have United States will be represented, China, I'm sure, as well as Russia, possibly. So yes, I believe a UN would be the right way to go.
Well, I do too. But this article takes it yet a step further and says not only should they be, an overarching human type political situation rather than a country, but they should be self-governed. Not governed from Earth.
Interesting. Well, that would make sense because they're all the way in Mars. How would you enforce Earth's laws if they're on Mars?
That is a very good question.
So really, they almost have to be self-governed because, quite honestly, if you have the kid on there that's been arrested 20 times, how are you going to get there to arrest him again? It's just not going to happen. Speaking of which, maybe he'd be a great candidate for Mars.
I think we ought to blast him out of there. Yeah, what they're saying is there will be an actual sustainable colony somewhere between the 30s and the 60s. So it's not far off.
Interesting. I like that idea of being self-governing, autonomous from Earth.
Exactly. Autonomous. Exactly.
Being their own thing. I respect that.
So I was thinking on this next story, which is also space, a lot of space, and
I see that
nature just happens to be today. We can go back to more strictly paranormal things as we're going back in reverse chronological order through the feed.
Yes, we
but
are.
Check out this headline. Ancient quasar beam pierces photon fog.
Oh, no. That almost sounds like the old Archimedes death ray.
Do you think that was inspired by the Star Wars opening?
I'm starting to think that.
I do, too. I'm thinking that is tied in.
Speaking of which.
Now, speaking of which, we already have my tickets because my son, who turned 12 a few days ago, actually last Saturday, he as part of his birthday experience, we already had a party, but we're going and we already have our tickets. We did the online buy in advance thing because if you don't, then I don't even know where you would see it tomorrow. That is for certain.
Yeah. Well, actually, it opened tonight.
It did, but isn't that at midnight?
It is at midnight. Yeah. Well, yeah. So technically, tomorrow, I know as a member of the media, I could have went tonight at midnight to go see it, but I don't. I am so Star Wars out at this point. It's everywhere, and it's actually getting quite annoying.
Well, I think from what I can tell from I haven't sat down and read, but I have certainly surveyed probably 30 reviews that are already out.
Yeah. And all of them are good because they're on the payroll.
They are beyond good. They are losing their minds. And it's every kind of reviewer. It's the hardcore art reviewer, the film school type reviewer, the populist reviewer. It's all of them.
What are you going to do if you show up there and we all see Star Wars and we go, could have been better?
I'm not sure. I mean, it could always be better. But what I'm hearing from the majority of those reviews, the majority now, this is their favorite Star Wars movie ever.
Really? Even better than the original was in 1977?
No one even compares them to the prologues. The 90s, no one cares anymore.
Well, the 90 ones with Jar Jar Binks and all that stuff. I did not like those. I didn't even consider them Star Wars films, to be honest with you.
They were. You're right. They were like some other franchise.
It was horrid. It was bad. No, thank you.
different tone, completely different tone.
Yeah, but
they say the adventure's back, the fun is back, the humor is back, the personalities are back. It's low, it's smaller scale, it's more human, a lot less CGI, much more practical effects. It's really this is really the fourth movie, is what they're saying.
Yeah.
So anyway, I will certainly let everyone know my opinion next Wednesday. But I'm excited about seeing it tomorrow night, 7:00.
I'm gonna go. I know that the theater here in my area is offering a media screening, and so I'm gonna go with the members of the media. I'm sure, and that way I don't have to deal with the kids with the cell phones and the lightsabers and all that stuff that comes with the Star Wars film, and be able to watch it for what it is, kind of deal. And I like Star Wars. I've never been a giant Star Wars fan. I know, shoot me now. I know, hate mail coming. I hear it typing. I've been more of a Star Trek guy, to be honest with you. More of a Star Trek guy. Just saying. I thought the new Star Trek movies were phenomenal.
They were.
I like the Star Trek films. I thought they were all great. I used to love the series, but Star Wars is good in its own right. It gets overhyped, in my opinion. There's so many. How many of these movies have you heard? Just great reviews for, oh my God, it's the greatest movie that defines a generation. And you go there and it stinks.
Well, are you talking about Star Wars or are you talking
I'm
about
talking about in general. And so that's why I'm like, okay, let's not buy into the hype. You know what I mean? I remember when The Happening was supposed to be a big deal. With what's his name, what a Shyamalan or whatever, and they're
Shyamalan,
it's a great film. No, it sucked.
Yeah, that wasn't good. All right, in general, I will say this. I will say my attitude going in is mildly excited optimism. I think I will like it. I think it will be good. I hope it is, and I really do remember the feeling I had because I was about the right age. I was late teens when the very first one came out, and I saw it in the theater right away. Probably not the first day, but early on, within the first week, probably. And I was really blown away.
Well, back then it was like
it was astonishing.
It was like the first time you ever heard rock and roll kind of feeling. I mean,
it was, it was that good.
Yeah,
and I loved it that much. And I really do love the other two of the first three.
Mm-hmm.
And who doesn't love Ewoks, man?
Well, Ewoks, that was my favorite one. Was Return of the Jedi.
That's a lot of people's favorite.
By far. The rest of them were good, but Return of the Jedi was more entertaining. It kind of had more of the entertainment feel to it rather than just a straight up space opera. And it threw in the Ewoks, which really was cool.
And the second one was darker.
Yep, the second one was way darker. First one, of course, is the standard that they weigh that.
Establishing the world. Yep. And they did it really well.
Yep.
All right, well, since we only have a few more minutes, let's get a little bit paranormal because we haven't touched a whole lot on that. Have you seen any of these? This will be the third Blu-ray collection of Vincent Price films will be coming out in February. This will be a 4-disc
That's
set.
Pretty cool. See, I like Vincent Price films.
Love Vincent.
I always liked him. In fact, House on Haunted Hill with him in it was always a good standout.
I love all the Edgar Allan Poe adaptations. I like his later stuff when some of it got really weird.
Yes, he did. It kind of got a little off the tracks there.
Like Dr. Phibes, remember that?
Yes, I do. Remember Devil Bat? I think he was in a movie called Devil Bat, too, if I remember correctly, when I was a kid. And that movie scared the heck out of me.
I think so, yeah. I think I've seen that one. I've seen a lot of them.
But you look at it now, and there's the wire that the bat was going down. Speaking of odd things that you see in a movie, I sat down with the wife on Netflix, and we watched the original Christmas Carol from 1939. Wow.
With the Alistair Sim?
Oh, yeah, the original, the black and white, he's all, got the weird thing going on for himself. But,
That's a lot of people's favorite one.
Then they get to the ghost part of it, and they're supposed to be flying. Oh, my God, we see every wire. It just really took away from the movie. I'm thinking, oh, thank God for CGI now and green screen, because there's the wire, and you can see the people just, what they're doing is they're just rolling look like wallpaper past them to make it look like they're flying.
Yeah, it's a new world, and people are still adjusting, and it's interesting that the fact that more than average or more than you might expect in this day and age of the effects in the new Star Wars are practical rather than CGI.
So,
and that's held out. That's being presented as some sort of big positive thing.
Really? So they opted to go
Yeah.
practical rather than CGI. That's good.
Way more often than you might think, which is what people are saying. I'm eager to see how that plays out too. But isn't it interesting that is now being held up as a positive thing?
Yeah, it's like people want to come back.
A return to analog.
I mean,
but
yeah.
when you look at all the old analog stuff, just like you were saying, the effects are crap.
Well, do you remember the old stop motion for like the Godzilla films and stuff?
Sure.
It just
it looked silly as hell.
It did. It looked real silly, and I don't know. Like we watched a movie, like I said earlier, Ant-Man the other night with my son, and he really wanted to see it, and so he sat there. We watched it on Blu-ray. Great movie, by the way, not bad. In fact, I liked it better than the Avengers, movie. The newest Avengers I thought was horrid.
It didn't make much sense.
No, but this one was actually really good. The comics, it stayed true to the comic, and it was a good, fun family film. And but the effects were just astonishing in it.
I haven't seen it. I've heard really positive things. My son, who sees everything, certainly all superhero movies, has seen it, and he said it was one of the better ones. So
yeah.
I will have to see it, absolutely. Before we run out of time here, with only a few minutes left before the break, while we're in the media, always have to let people know about the sci-fi Twilight Zone.
Oh, yes.
Original Twilight Zone.
156 big episodes.
Over the New Year's weekend. It takes like 3 days, I think.
Man.
And they're running them in chronological
Are
order.
you going to sit down and gorge on Twilight Zone?
I think I'll record some of them.
Yeah. Have you ever sat down for every single one?
Oh, no.
Now, I got some people on my Facebook feed that are absolute the Twilight Zone junkies, and they are going to attempt to sit there for all 156 episodes.
Oh, my God.
Well,
Torture.
Are they going to eat and shower and maybe use the restroom? And what's the plan here?
Catch a few winks now and then?
Yeah, but they are saying that they are going to give it their best. They're all to stay up. And it was funny because they cited our show about Rod Serling not too long ago.
That was a great episode. We had the director of the museum.
We did, and they cited the show After Hours AM. They said, we listened to it, and they really want to, they were, I think they were hinting that maybe the museum would sponsor them. But, let's just be honest, two guys in an apartment that are probably going to smell aren't going to get too much sponsorship.
They'll get things like, wow.
Yeah, like, whoa.
That's
you have entirely
ambitious of you.
Yeah, you have entirely too much time on your hands.
And do you have any regard for your personal health?
Exactly. And by the way, Timmy, have you discovered girls yet?
All right, one more really, really quick. Amazing long-form article. In fact, it's included in award-winning long-form articles from 2015. About the poor 21-year-old woman who ended up in the water tower at the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles, Elisa Lam. And, it's at least partially the basis of American Horror Story Hotel.
Really?
It inspired, at least the atmosphere there, inspired this current season of American Horror Story. So it's a really, really good, it's very touching, it's heartfelt.
I was hoping you were going to cover the Freddy Krueger looks somehow different on this.
Well, there's that too. I'm not sure what more I can add.
Yeah, I'm not sure when Freddy became blonde and busty.
Well, it's cosplay, and what it is, a big trend in cosplay is gender role reversal.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, women taking on male roles and vice versa.
Yeah, well, that
and not cross-dressing. I mean, she's doing it as a woman, but she is a female.
Well, she looks gosh darn good doing it.
She looks gosh darn female.
She does, and then the one right under her is as well, the mind reels. She looks pretty female as well, so hats off to both you gals.
Oh, we still have a minute. Have you seen these 3 pictures of Putin from 1920, 1941?
I'm looking at it. No way. He can't. It's got to be.
time traveler?
Yeah,
immortal?
No. Could have been family, Could have been like distant, like grandpas, or could have been just, he's got a fairly common feature to him, though.
Well, he's got a Russian look, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's for that area. So, really, he could be, though. Maybe he is a vampire. Maybe he is really, he's one of the undead. He is one of them.
But look at those pictures.
They are uncanny. They really are. They really are. But we got to get out of here. We got to play your Fox News for you. When we come back, who do we got on tap there, Eric?
We have someone I admire as an author, amazingly, Gerry Bowler, author of The World Encyclopedia of Christmas and Santa, a biography.
All right, so stick around for that. Gerry Bowler, come right back after this weird Christmas stuff coming right at you. Don't go anywhere.
Fox News Radio, I'm Kathleen Maloney. A man who bought the assault rifles that were used in the San Bernardino massacre is now facing terror charges. Fox News Radio's Jessica Rosenthal with us live.
And Kathleen, the complaint against Enrique Marquez says he conspired with Syed Farouk to commit acts of terrorism and provided material support to Farouk. He bought rifles over 3 years ago and smokeless powder that were then used in the December 2nd attack this year. The complaint says he converted to Islam about 8 years ago and spent hours with Farouk reading and watching radical content. Over 3 years ago, they'd plotted to attack a community college as well as a highway during rush hour, but they didn't follow through when some men in the area were arrested for plotting to help Al-Qaeda. The complaint says the day after the shooting, before he checked himself into UCLA's hospital, Marquez called 911 and said his friend was the San Bernardino shooter and had used his guns in the attack. Kathleen.
Thanks, Jessica. Some calming words from the Commander-in-Chief.
Just days after visiting the Pentagon, the president paid a visit to the National Counterterrorism Center, assuring the public that he's received no specific credible information suggesting a potential terrorist attack against the U.S.
We cannot give in to fear or change how we live our lives, because that's what terrorists want. That's the only leverage that they have.
The president acknowledged that the threat of terrorism has evolved to include smaller groups or individuals, making detection by counterterrorism officials much harder.
Fox News Radio's John Decker at the White House. A terror threat against the nation's fifth largest school district today, similar to the one that caused L.A. to shut its schools down earlier. Las Vegas choosing to keep the schools open for its more than 300,000 students. School officials say they have crisis plans in place and police trained to detect and respond to threats. You're listening to Fox News Radio. Fair and balanced. The House approving more than $600 billion in tax cuts for businesses, investors, and families, now sending it on to the president. Congress working on a budget compromise to fund the government for most of next year. A vote on that expected tomorrow. New Orleans takes a big step away from its Confederate past.
4 prominent monuments to historically significant Confederate leaders posted around New Orleans might soon be coming down. The city council voted 6-1 to remove the statues, including a towering figure of General Robert E. Lee. The idea to get rid of the Confederate markers originated with Mayor Mitch Landrieu. The monuments had long been the subject of controversy, but a renewed push began following a white supremacist gunning down 9 black parishioners at a historically black church in Charleston, South Carolina this past summer. Eben Brown, Fox News.
Star Wars fans apparently have what they need for opening day.
Ticket sales for The Force Awakens has broken all pre-sales records. Fandango.com's Harry Medved.
It's already the best-selling movie of all time, according to Fandango. We've sold more tickets for this film than we did during the entire theatrical run of Jurassic World.
That's the best selling for Fandango. However, Medved says that doesn't mean you can't get tickets for Star Wars right now. On the contrary, the theater owners are literally pushing other movies out of the theaters to keep up with demand.
What's happening is that theaters have so many screens, so they're just moving over other films. I feel bad for the Chipmunks.
It's also pushing Amy Poehler and Tina Fey's film Sisters out as well. Star Wars opens nationwide Friday. Michelle Polino, Fox News.
It was a year ago today that the U.S. and Cuba announced they were going to work to normalize relations. President Obama says it's a process that will take some time. The two countries now close to restoring regularly scheduled commercial flights. And yesterday's gains wiped out on Wall Street, the Dow falling 253 points. I'm Kathleen Maloney, Fox News Radio.
Hey everybody, this is Joel Sturgis, and did you know that After Hours AM and America's Most Haunted have a great new website out there? You're going to want to visit America's-Most-Haunted.com. There you can get all the new content from all the writers for America's Most Haunted, as well as the great haunted headlines everybody loves each and every week, as well as catch After Hours AM live right there, along with podcasts, past shows, and get to know your hosts, as well as contact us all in one stop. You're going to love it. You're not going to want to go anywhere else. So come to America's-Most-Haunted.com today. And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is I was going to call you the Prince of Christmas, the Grand Poobah of the New Year, Eric Olson. No, but Eric, we are back. Who do we have tonight as a guest? And I know I can't wait to get the topic rolling. But why don't we tell the fine folks who we have tonight?
Very, very exciting. We're talking weird Christmas customs, traditions, and legends from around the world with Yuletide expert Gerry Bowler, author of the classic The World Encyclopedia of Christmas and Santa Claus, a biography. And he's got a new book coming out in the new year in 2016 about the 2,000-year war on Christmas. Gerry was born in Saskatchewan to well-meaning parents who supplied him with at an early age with sets of encyclopedias bought on the installment plan from supermarkets that invariably ceased selling them before the family had reached the letter H. So damn, he knew A through G like a screaming mofo. But from there, he ended up earning a PhD in history from King's College London. Dr. Bowler's writings range from academic texts on 16th century Europe to musings on the relationship of Aristotle to professional wrestling. I think about that often. He has published articles on Wayne Gretzky, the Spice Girls, television evangelists, and Emperor Charles V. Holy cats.
Wow.
He is the only historian whose work is included in both the Encyclopedia of the Renaissance, which I see is going for a cool $1,200, and the Encyclopedia of Popular Culture. His interest in things Christmassy began when he was invited to a party and was asked to bring a little quiz on the subject. This innocent request turned into 25 years of research and a desire, bordering on mania, to learn everything there was to know about Christmas, its history, customs, superstitions, songs, foods, movies, art, advertising, and literature. Welcome to the show, Dr. Gerry Bowler.
Thank you. Nice to be
here.
here.
Gerry. Do you want me called Dr. Bowler or is Gerry fine, sir?
Oh, Gerry, please.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thank you. I want to say right away, I dig professional wrestling.
Oh, did you?
Oh, yeah. I almost became one. I was actually good friends with Ken Patera.
Well, did you have a ring name?
Well, no, I never got that far. When I was a ripe old age of 17 years old, and I happened to meet Ken Patera because he was in Minnesota with us, and I happened to kind of get to know him. And he says, you know, when you turn 18, if you want to become a pro wrestler, you can. Really? How do I do that? He says, well, I run a school for the AWA. Really?
What a coincidence.
And then, of course, I went to my mom and dad. Hey, Mom and Dad, guess what I'm going to be? A pro wrestler. My father at the time was reading a newspaper, and it slowly came down past his eyes. He looks at me dead on, and little did he know I'd become a radio host. So, I mean, really, what's the difference? But he looks at me, he says, no. Paper goes right back up. What do you mean, no? Paper comes down. I'm not paying for any school where you can be a moron. It goes back up. And that was the end of my aspirations of being a pro wrestler.
Well.
I know. I really wanted to be like a Ted DiBiase type $1 million man.
Well, the saddest words are, "It might have been."
Yes, that's right. But moving on, I just had to throw that in there because, I have fond memories of the old wrestling days. But Christmas, though, this Encyclopedia Christmas, when you first set out to write this, because, it's not like there was anything done like this prior, did you find it daunting to write all this down, all this odd things about Christmas?
Well, it took about 10 years, so it kind of snuck up on me. I continued my researches into European political thought, not that was going anywhere. But it wasn't until I had kind of a mass of stuff, and I asked a friend of mine who was a novelist whether or not I should get an agent for this. And he recruited his publisher, and sicked him on me, and they waved vast sums of money under our nose, and I signed a paper and agreed that by next spring I would have an Encyclopedia of Christmas. So I kind of had to have one by then.
Well, yeah. Whenever anyone waves vast sums of money under my nose, it motivates me as well.
Yes, it concentrates the mind wonderfully.
It does. It's odd how that works.
And the thing about an encyclopedia is that you can just keep adding articles alphabetically and stick them in. It's not as if it's a grand sweeping narrative. You're not writing War and Peace or anything. Though it ended up having over 1,000 articles on various aspects of Christmas.
Well, I want to add, I am a collector. I guess I've been saying this now for the last couple of weeks because we have been talking. Last week we covered Krampus on the show. So we've been talking about Christmas and Christmas themes. And I have a large collection, so I'm certain nothing like yours, but, I have dozens of books about the history of Christmas coming at it from all different angles. And it's something I'm very interested in, holidays in general, but especially Halloween and Christmas. But of all the books, this is the one that I refer to the most. And I've been reading this book, just picking it up, and because it isn't a narrative, because you can just pick and choose or just open it up wherever you want. I've been reading this since I picked it up probably 5-ish years ago. And every year I'll just sit there and read and read and read. And it is amazing the amount of information, how comprehensive it is, and how well written it is. I salute you.
Oh, I thank you. I modestly accept your enthusiasm. It's a wonderful topic, though, isn't it? It's something that people just love talking about.
Oh,
and,
it is.
And that's what I would do if I met somebody from a foreign country or someone from an ethnic group. The first thing I would ask them is, how do you celebrate Christmas? And they would love to tell me.
That is really cool. I was kind of getting ready for the show, and I was looking at strange, just different kinds of Christmas celebrations from around the world, and one that really grabbed me from Japan. Why do they? It's KFC, oddly enough, that they love in Japan on Christmas.
It is. When Christmas came to Japan, it came after World War II with the occupation by American troops. And Americans brought with them their chain restaurants, their Coca-Cola, and so on. And the resemblance of Colonel Sanders to Santa Claus and the resemblance of chicken to turkey struck the Japanese as eminently doable. And so they fell in love with KFC as the food and dessert in the form of what they call a Christmas cake, but we would call a birthday cake. They figured that since December 25th was the birthday of Jesus, that Christmas cake equaled a birthday cake.
Okay.
And so you'll see those Christmas cakes on Japanese shelves in December.
Interesting. Actually, now that you put it in those kind of terms, that makes total sense.
Oh, absolutely.
The two of them do kind of resemble each other, Colonel Sanders, Santa Claus, and what a cool tradition. KFC, I like KFC any time of the year. It doesn't have to be Christmas, but I think that's really cool. Almost, it's just funny what you find when you start digging, like who roller skates to Mass? Really?
Venezuelans. Yeah, they have a lot of lovely customs in Venezuela.
And I found that kind of be funny. But I guess my main question And then this has been something that we've been kind of talking about and amongst, my family and stuff. Where did Santa Claus, Saint Nick, where did he originate from? I mean, the form that we see him now, the cheeks and the beard, how did that come about?
That's a story that takes centuries to develop. It starts off with Saint Nicholas. Saint Nicholas was a bishop in the very early church in the 300s, and he became, over a course of centuries, the most powerful saint in heaven outside of the Virgin Mary. He was the patron saint of sailors. He was the patron saint of Russia, patron saint of children and students and barrel makers and thieves and perfume makers and so on. He had the power of flight, according to legend. He had the power to be in two different places at one time, and he was enormously charitable. Mm-hmm. He was all for justice. He would save the unjustly convicted. He would resurrect youth who had been murdered, and he dropped gifts to people secretly at night if they were poor and in need of money. Mm-hmm. So in the Middle Ages, you have this wonderful supernatural hero. But we don't have a tradition of giving gifts to children for over 1,000 years. What we had was in December a time where groups at the margins of society, like old women, students, or children, could go door to door and demand. Mm-hmm. And kind of like Halloween. It was the time when the upper classes, the prosperous, would give to those who asked. So until probably the 1100s, there's no Santa Claus figure. There's no magical nighttime Christmas gift bringer to children. That tradition starts, we think, in the 12th century when some nuns in France, on the eve of St. Nicholas Day, because St. Nicholas was the patron saint of children, mm-hmm. Began to put little gifts in the shoes of the children they looked after. And they said these gifts came in the night from St. Nicholas. So there you have a revolution. There you have your first magical nighttime Christmas gift bringer. And St. Nicholas rules supreme in Europe for about 400 years. On St. Nicholas Day, uh-huh. Gifts. Now, in the 1500s, the Protestant Reformation explodes, and one of the things they do in Germany and England and Scandinavia is to drive out all the saints. And with them goes St. Nicholas. Boot, out he goes.
Okay.
But parents would still like to attribute Christmas time gift bringing to some supernatural figure. It's a wonderful gift they give to their kids by clinging to this mythology. So if St. Nicholas isn't going to do it, who's going to do it? The Christ child.
Gotcha.
All good things come from God, so say that the baby Jesus brought the gifts.
Okay.
But the problem with the baby Jesus is twofold. The first is he doesn't scare the crap out of anybody the way St. Nicholas.
No, not really.
St. Nicholas would come in the month of December to visit children holding presents and holding a switch. And if you hadn't been doing your lessons, if you've been skipping your catechism, if you've been beating up your little brother, well, you got whomped right there on the spot. Good little kids got treats and dolls. Now, the baby Jesus didn't have that stern aspect. Nor could you expect the baby Jesus, the Christ child, das Christkindl in Germany, le petit Jésus in France, to be carrying big, heavy bags full of stuff around. So what they did was to give the Christ child a shaggy, scary, fur-covered helper who could do both the menacing and the carrying. So all across Europe, there springs up dozens of different scary, shaggy, dark creatures. Huh. They have names which, interestingly, are connected to the banished St. Nicholas, like Pelznickel or Belsnickel, Nicholas in furs, or Ruklaus, rough Nicholas. They do the carrying, they do the scary business.
The henchmen of Jesus, as it were.
Exactly. Now, when Europeans migrate to North America in the 1600s, the Germans will bring with them Pelsnickel, Beltsnickel, the scary, shaggy guy. And the Dutch will bring with them St. Nicholas. Okay?
Okay.
Now, we have to say that in the 1600s, Christmas was taken over by the lower classes, and I mean really lower. Christmas became a kind of like the roughest New Year's you can imagine, full of drunks, mobs, banging on pots and pans, roughing up the prosperous citizens in the street, breaking up church services.
Does not sound like a good time at all.
Well, Philadelphia, Boston, New York, they had organized gangs to do this, and people began to associate Christmas with the lower end of behavior. So in New York, a little after 1800, a bunch of poets and painters, academics got together to try and reform Christmas, to try and bring it in from outdoors, to take the alcohol away, to center it on the family and children. And what they did was to resurrect St. Nicholas, who existed in the folk memory of the Dutch settlements in New York City and up the Hudson River Valley. So they revived what the Dutch called Sinterklaas. And these people, like Washington Irving, told stories about how Sinterklaas delivered gifts at night in a horse-pulled flying wagon. Now, in 1821, some unknown genius, and give $1 million to know this guy's name, in New York, published a little booklet with pictures. It was called A Children's Friend. And in it, Santa Claus, which you can see derives phonetically from Sinterklaas, St. Nicholas. Santa Claus appears for the first time dressed not as a bishop, but in a fur robe. Not pulled by a flying horse, but pulled by a flying reindeer. And it talks about how he comes into the house on Christmas Eve and drops off Christmas presents. Now, this obviously was read by Clement Clark Moore, who the next year wrote The Night Before Christmas and changed the 1 reindeer into the 8 reindeer, had him come down the chimney, took away all the frightening aspects of St. Nicholas, and put him in the furs of Beltsnickel. So these two European mythologies come together in the 1820s to tame Christmas, and it absolutely works.
I was curious. I've always been wondering where the reindeer came from.
Nobody knows. This genius obviously figured, well, I'm living in northeastern United States where it snows. We get around in the winter on sleighs. It's not a European thing. He'd heard, I guess, of Laplanders, Finns in reindeer-pulled sleighs. And there we have it.
So Rudolph, though, I mean, my kids love Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, of course. Now, when did he come in? About the 60s?
No, the 1930s.
Oh, okay.
He's the only 20th century addition to the Santa Claus myth. Everybody tries to add to the myth. All kinds of advertisers, storytellers, They do amazing things, and everybody forgets it. But Rudolph is the only one that's stuck. He begins as the hero of a department store flyer in Chicago in the late 30s. I think it's 1938. And the author, a guy by the name of May, had a rough life as a kid. He'd been bullied, and so he has this story of a bullied reindeer that saves the day. During the 1940s, he's turned into a song and a cartoon, and then the animation that comes, I think, from the 1960s.
Okay, so that's the birth of Rudolph. I never knew that either. That's really, really interesting.
That was quite a narrative. You told the 1,500, 1,700 year history of Santa Claus without pausing, without interruption, and you boiled it down to about 10 or 15 minutes. That was a performance, my friend.
Well, the story goes on. Europe had all kinds of Christmas gift bringers, and some of them were really scary. There was Perkta, the disemboweler.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like a pro wrestler name.
It does not sound like a gift.
No.
It would terrify the pro wrestling world. She would rip your stomach open and fill it with straw and then sew it back up, or give you a gift. You just never
you just didn't know what you're gonna get.
That's like what they did to the big bad wolf.
Yeah, you didn't know if you're gonna see your entrails.
These sort of Grimm brothers things, and there were characters in France: Père Fouettard, Father Lash, Father Whip. These are guys you don't want to mess with. When European parents in the late 1800s heard about Santa Claus, this non-judgmental grandfatherly figure, they adopted him, but they kept the old names. So Père Noël, Joulupukki, which literally means Christmas goat in Finland, turns into a grandfatherly figure instead of a scary animal. And we have what are essentially European Santa Clauses under their own names. Now, St. Nicholas still exists as the gift bringer in parts of Europe. So does the baby Jesus. So do various angels. But two things happen in the 20th century to cause a crisis. The first is, and they both happen after World War II. The first is that Eastern Europe is occupied by the Soviet Union. And they have no place in their atheistic communist rule for a magical saint. So out goes the baby Jesus as a gift bringer. Out goes St. Nicholas. And he's replaced by a mythological Russian figure called Grandfather Frost, who comes on New Year's Eve. So gift bringing is shifted from Christmas to the secular period of New Year's Eve.
Okay.
And Grandfather Frost is foisted on the East Germans, the Poles, the Romanians, the Yugoslavians, the Czechs, and so on. So St. Nicholas, the baby Jesus, angels are endangered in Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
In Western Europe, Santa Claus becomes too popular for a lot of people. He's too popular because he's too commercial and secular, and because he's American.
Okay.
And so the snooty intellectuals who smoke Gaulois cigarettes and wear berets in France team up with the Catholic Church, and they burn Santa Claus in effigy on the grounds of Dijon Cathedral in France. And there's a fight back in Europe against the intrusion of the global Santa Claus in favor of the native gift bringers.
Now, is the Santa Claus that we see today, that we look at, is that a product of Coca-Cola? Were they the ones that brought the white beard and the robe?
That's a great myth. But no. Santa Claus goes through a lot of shapes in the 1800s. But by 1900, he is as we see him now. He is a normal-sized adult, though pretty porky, white hair and beard, white fur trimmed on a red outfit. In North America and Canada, the United States, his jacket is short. In Europe, he tends to wear kind of a longer robe.
Okay.
But the red and white and fur is standard by 1900. Coke comes along in 1931 with wonderful ads by Haddon Sundblom, the artist. And it's the overwhelming presence of these ads. Coke just spent gigabucks over the years to flood the market with these ads, and that's why we associate Coca-Cola with Santa Claus.
Yeah,
but
in fact,
they took a stereotype and went to town with it.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can't look anywhere anymore without seeing the Coca-Cola sign with Santa Claus, and that was a myth I fell into too. I thought, well, that must be where we get our iconic Santa Claus from, is Coke, because it seems like it's been around forever.
Yeah.
But guys, we got to run to break. But boy, this is such an interesting topic. No one go anymore. We're gonna be right back with more Dr. Gerry Bowler and Christmas right after this. Hey everybody, this is Joel Sturgis, and did you know that After Hours AM and America's Most Haunted have a great new website out there? You're going to want to visit America's-Most-Haunted.com. There you can get all the new content from all the writers for America's Most Haunted, as well as the great haunted headlines everybody loves each and every week, as well as catch After Hours AM live right there, along with podcasts, past shows, and get to know your hosts, as well as contact us all in one stop. You're going to love it. You're not going to want to go anywhere else. So come to America's-Most-Haunted.com today.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If pop culture is to be believed, roughly 40% of all people are actually vampires, or dating one. Well, undead or not, you can always save on a clean, comfortable room at Motel 6, even if you sleep during the day, because direct sunlight turns you into a pile of sparkly coffee grounds. Speaking of which, we have free coffee every morning. You day sleepers may want to go for the decaf. I'm Tom Bodette, and we'll leave the light on for you. Book online at motel6.com.
Never fight if you can avoid it. But when you must fight, don't lose. And when nothing less than freedom is at stake, we fight. We're millions of people just like you. We're the longest standing civil rights organization in the U.S. Proud defenders of history's patriots. Protectors of the Second Amendment. Advocating the right to keep and bear arms. Advancing the shooting sports, championing gun safety, education, and training, creating a vital legacy by answering freedom's call. And we're growing stronger every day. We are the NRA, and the NRA is you.
It's Thursday night, and you're grabbing drinks with some friends. Started off with a pitcher for the table, which quickly becomes two. There's pool. And there's the photo booth.
All right, everybody squeeze in. Say cheese!
Followed naturally by an order of wings. And another.
Can we get some extra ranch sauce?
Then there's the ceremonial nightcap.
So what are we doing this weekend?
And lastly, it's back to the car, which, if you're buzzed... could be the most expensive night of your life. Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Do you have a question for our guest tonight? Don't feel like calling the show? Not a problem. Email those questions to afterhoursam@gmail.com. Again, that's afterhoursam@gmail.com. Back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me, the Grand Poobah, the master of Christmas.
Well, I don't know if I'm that.
Well,
I think
okay.
Gerry is,
yeah, I was going to say.
I am Eric Olson.
I thought I went a little too far with that master of Christmas, to be honest. You know, I kind of felt bad now. You know, but
thought.
Coming right back at it, Jerry, I got to ask you, of course, and anyone that wants to go and get a copy of your really, really cool book, Encyclopedia of Christmas, get it. Take a look at it. You're going to want it around for years to come because, especially when your kids grow up, you can, thumb through it and say, oh, that's where that came from, right there, and have that instant reference that isn't online. You know what I mean? The old book. That's the beautiful part, too.
It's an actual book.
It is.
I love the original.
It is.
I actually have I think it's the original 2000.
So pick up the copy.
Beautiful.
Man.
It's beautifully printed.
Yeah, they don't make them that way anymore. Not very often. So thank you so much for putting out such a great edition. But I got to ask you, werewolves and Christmas, that really kind of looking at everything that kind of stuck out in my mind. How do werewolves play a part in Christmas?
Well, you have to realize that Christmas is set in the darkest time of the year. And that's the time when people before electric lighting, had the least light, the shortest day, the longest night, and the fear of the outdoors and the forest was naturally terrifying. So it came to be believed that on Christmas Eve, the forces of evil were at their height because they were furious. They knew that with the birth of the baby Jesus, their reign would end. So all across Europe, there's folklore about evil spirits, witches, and monsters appearing around the Christmas season. And in the Baltic lands, in the eastern end of the Baltic Sea, what would now be Poland and Lithuania, there were stories about werewolves becoming particularly active in the Christmas season, and they would try and break into people's homes and so on. They also believed that at this time they held a kind of werewolf Olympics, that it was the survival of the fittest, and the losers, the ones who were too fat to jump over the wall, were eaten by their pals. It was also, generally in Europe, it was believed that if you were born on Christmas Day, it was bad luck, because this made the baby Jesus jealous. Only in England and Ireland was being born on Christmas considered good luck. In the rest of Europe, if you were born on Christmas, you had a chance of turning into a thief, a werewolf, or a warrior.
Man, that's just not a very good outcome.
Now, one of the things to do to keep your kid from turning into either a werewolf or a particular kind of monster in Greece is to bind the newborn baby in tresses of garlic and clip their toenails so they don't have a chance to turn into claws. There are funnier, gentler kinds of stories about werewolves and Christmas. In Louisiana, they say that Père Noël, Santa Claus, travels through the bayous and the swamps on a flat-bottom pirogue, kind of a canoe, pulled by alligators, and at the head of the alligators is a red-nosed werewolf.
Wow. That's a weird visual right there. Imagine Santa Claus coming down there with a werewolf with a red nose. That is an interesting. That's really interesting. I've never heard that one before. But
well, people do love saying that Santa Claus comes to their neighborhood in particular ways. Of course, in Hawaii he comes on a surfboard. On various islands,
or in an outrigger.
Yes, I guess that's right. And in Australia, he's pulled by 6 white kangaroos.
That's really neat. And that's all covered, of course, in the encyclopedia.
It is, yes.
And so everyone get your copy. And that's Encyclopedia of Christmas, done very, very well by Gerry Bowler, Dr. Gerry Bowler. And you're going to want to do that. The World Encyclopedia of Christmas. And it will cover everything that you're ever going to want to know about Christmas, but we're afraid to ask. But one thing I'm kind of afraid to ask about, but I will. I'll do it. the pooping log. What's a pooping log?
The history of the Yule log at Christmas is a very long and complicated one. It takes a peculiar shape in southern France and northern Spain. And it's one of the ways in which kids get little gifts before Christmas. The father of the family will come in with a log, a little face painted on one end, and he'll wear a little red hat. And the father will put the log under a blanket, under which are also concealed little gifts. And kids are encouraged to take sticks and to beat on the log, crying, and I'll say this in the politest form, poop log poop. And the little gifts and toys will come out until finally there's a dried herring, and that signals the end of
the poop.
Gift giving.
Gotcha.
I was unaware that logs even had sphincters.
That's definitely a new one
Never
on
mind
me.
faces. They come out the other end.
And hats.
Yeah, and hats.
You know, that's a very interesting tradition. It kind of reminds me of an odd pinata kind of setup there.
Yes, yeah.
Beat it until it gives you gifts. Beat it into submission. That's really funny, but you know, and that's a lot of these are lighthearted. But one thing I've always wondered quickly before we kind of move along is we were having a debate in my household again of where mistletoe comes from. I mean, how did that join us?
Mistletoe is one of those plants that you can bring into the house during the winter season. People want, in pre-industrial societies, at the darkest time of the year, to have light and heat and greenery and plenty in the house. And so you bring in things that are green at that time of year, holly, that sort of thing. And you can find mistletoe and bring it in as well. Its origins are said to lie in the Celtic countries that had Druidic kind of worship, and it was a symbol of peace. Mm-hmm. So in York Cathedral in the Middle Ages, the town constable would lay mistletoe on the altar of the great church there and proclaim a Yule truce. And during that time, all kinds of what they called unthrifty folk, actors and gypsies and fortune tellers and jugglers, could come into town and ply their wares in the Christmas season.
Okay, now how did the kissing come into it?
Good question. There was a parallel custom in which people would bring greenery into the house and hang it from the ceiling, and sometimes they would put in this collection of greenery a hoop around which they would bind greenery, and little dolls representing the Holy Family. And that would be called the Holy Bough or the Kissing Bough. You would exchange the kiss of peace under this. And that gets associated with mistletoe. But until the early 1800s, that was strictly a kind of a low-class thing to do. That was the sort of thing the servants got up to, necking under the mistletoe. And it was only brought upstairs to the decent folk in the 1800s.
Interesting. Yeah, because my wife always grabs me and says, "We're under the mistletoe." Oh, yeah, that's right.
Is it real mistletoe or plastic mistletoe?
It's plastic.
Okay, now here's the deal. Every time you kiss under the mistletoe, you have to remove a berry. And when the berries are gone, the kissing's gone.
Gotcha. See, now she's been using this as an unlimited well of kissing during the Christmas season. Now that I know that, I'm going to tell her, you know, it's just not fair. We got to remove a berry. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, back to things that poop. I am a particular fan of the incredibly odd Catalan tradition of Spain of the Caganer or Cagane. Why don't you tell us about that one?
This is one of the oddest things. It is traditional in northeastern Spain to put in the family nativity scene a little doll of a peasant in peasant clothes, red peasant hat, squatting and taking a dump. And you put them discreetly, and people will know to look for them. It's become so popular that you can now get them in the shape of Pope Francis or various movie stars or politicians or soccer.
Barack Obama, I have seen.
I dare not imagine that one. Now, there's a funny thing happened a couple of years ago. The city of Barcelona usually had a life-size nativity scene with a life-size pooper in it. And the city disappeared it one year, and people protested, "Bring back our pooper."
We want our pooper back.
Exactly. And the city replied, "Look, we've just passed a bylaw against urination and defecation in public. We're setting a bad example by having a guy take a crap in the nativity scene." But such was the force of tradition that he's been brought back.
Well, thank God they brought back the pooper.
Old traditions die hard. That one goes back at least to the 1500s. There's obviously some kind of fertility thing going on there.
Well, and we're kind of looking here, and one of the things that we talked about during the break was the kidnapping the baby Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, how did that come about? What's
nativity scenes aren't as popular in some parts of the United States as they are in Latin America, and Italy and southern France. There, the center of the family Christmas isn't going to be the Christmas tree. It's going to be the family creche, the nativity scene, and there's all kinds of customs associated with it. For example, when I go to visit people, I always check and see if they've put the baby Jesus in the nativity scene before Christmas. If they do, I give them a good talking to. That baby goes in only midnight on Christmas Eve.
Dude wasn't born yet. You're right.
Exactly. Do you have the Magi, the wise men, around the baby Jesus before Christmas? No, you do not.
No, you're right.
It didn't exist.
You got them on the buffet, making the long trip.
Yes, they're still walking around looking. Going,
Exactly.
hey, that star looks like it should be something. That whole thing.
I wonder if we're going to find a place to stay in this damn town.
Parts of Venezuela, when the baby Jesus goes into the nativity scene on Christmas Eve, he lies down, obviously. But the custom is that on the 1st of January, he is put upright, symbolizing his growth and the time that it took between the nativity and the arrival of the wise men. Okay, so on January 1st, the custom is called the standing up, the peradura of the baby Jesus. Now, if you go to your neighbor's house and you notice that the baby Jesus is lying down, you are obliged to kidnap the baby Jesus.
It's mine now.
Exactly. You take it to your house and you inform the negligent householder that a certain custom is required to get it back. So the family that has neglected the custom has to get together a procession that consists of boys with fireworks leading this parade, musicians, a teenage couple carrying a basket or a handkerchief representing Mary and Joseph. And they parade to the house of the kidnapper, where the baby Jesus is handed over to the teenage couple. Then the musicians burst forth, the firecrackers go off, everybody parades happily to the house of the negligent parents, who were obliged at that point to throw a party for everybody.
Wow.
That's a fun tradition.
Yeah, it's party time. But we've talked about all these traditions and all these different things. And what's your weirdest one of anywhere? What's the weirdest Christmas tradition that you've come across?
We've talked about some of them. There are ones that sound really scary, turn out to be quite innocent. In Quebec and Louisiana, territories that were both settled by French settlers in the early modern period. There's a custom of going door to door and demanding food under threat of torturing the oldest daughter of the house by putting her feet to the fire.
Wow, that sounds a lot worse.
It comes from the Middle Ages.
Seems harsh.
Yeah.
Go to the door and demand gifts, and they still sing the same song in Quebec and parts of France and Louisiana, and it's turned now into a kind of door-to-door charity food drive. But the threat of torture is still there.
That's even worse than trick or treating. Trick or treat, give me something good to eat.
Yeah.
How about witches and Christmas?
Well, there's good witches and there's bad witches. Again,
there are sandwiches. Excuse me.
I won't excuse you. That's inexcusable.
Oh, tuna fish thing. Thank you.
Okay. So you've got the bad witches that show up like Perkta the Disemboweler, and you've got a kind of a confusion in the Middle Ages between female figures that are scary and female figures that are good. So December 13th, for example, is St. Lucy's Day, or as they call her in Italy, Santa Lucia. In Sicily and Sweden, she's portrayed as a beautiful young girl in white, essentially, and her name means light. On the other hand, in Central Europe, she's called Lutzelfrau.
Wow, that's a harsh sounding name.
And she is one who punishes lazy girls and again disembowels bad children.
A lot of disemboweling going on.
Well, yeah, there is.
Entrails coming out.
In Norway, you hide your brooms on Christmas Eve because witches can come down the chimney and find them and ride around on them. So you hide the brooms and you put something stinky or scary on the fire. Spruce, sparks all over the place, or salt, and so on. Making the sign of the cross keeps the witches coming down the chimney. Okay. But there are good witches as well. In Italy, there is the Befana, which is a corruption of the name Epiphania or Epiphany. And this is a beautiful, sad story. The story goes that 2,000 years ago, the wise men were passing through town on their way to visit the baby Jesus, and they invited an old woman who was cleaning her house, sweeping the steps with a broom, to accompany them. And she said, I come, but I got to clean up. Mm-hmm. And so she finishes cleaning and hurries after them, but she missed the baby Jesus, and she's missed him ever since. So she flies around on her broom and creeps into bedrooms, hoping to encounter the baby Jesus each Epiphany, each January 6th. And in parts of Italy, she is the gift bringer, and gifts come on the night of January the 5th. There's a similar story in Russia called the Babushka, but that's not a very old legend. That really only goes back to the 1800s. And there's witches, nice witches in France as well, with iron teeth and big duck's feet, who still bring...
Not an attractive lot.
No, she's not known for her beauty, but she is very nice. She brings gifts.
Well, that's all right. But that'd be awesome. Hey, you might have weird feet, but you got presents. You're all right with me. But, quickly, we got a few minutes left. What's the scariest one of all of them? What one scared you the most?
Okay, you want scary? I'll give you scary. Iceland. Iceland is settled by Vikings. Who are not the nicest kind of people.
Nope.
And during the Middle Ages and the rise of the Little Ice Age, Iceland was separated from a lot of contact with Europe, and they developed their own folklore, and it was scary. They had the belief in a cannibal set of ogres who lived outside the settlements, and these ogres had 12 or 13 little sons who would come into your house one at a time in the 12 days before Christmas, and then leave one at a time in the 12 days after Christmas. And they have names like Meat Hook and Door Slammer. And they do all kinds of...
A gleeful bunch there, to be sure.
Yeah, and they were so scary, these stories about the Christmas cat who would eat you and these cannibal ogres, that the Danish parliament, because they were a colony of Denmark, forbade the stories to be told to children. But they exist now. They're called the Yule Lads, and they've turned into kind of Smurfs. And they're very friendly little characters now that bring little gifts.
Sure, so this is kind of, they had to morph it into something that could be, more palatable to the masses.
Yeah, it's part of the whole taming of these
cannibal, ogres and things that will eat you or disembowel you. Wow, I mean,
we vote no.
Yeah, I'm good, man. I like my entrails right where they are. I'm cool. And really, it's been an interesting show, and we got about 5 minutes left, but very, very interesting. I had no idea that there were just so many different traditions out there for Christmas. But, Gerry, where can people get your book and your best place to buy it? And if you have any email you want to throw out there, absolutely feel free to do so, sir.
Well, the books themselves are out of print, but you can still get the Kindle or the Nook versions online for cheap like borscht, $9.95, swell buy. But you can go on eBay or Amazon and still find used copies. It seemed to be the practice that after 10 years, books are declared by libraries to be obsolete. And so I noticed a few years ago, all of a sudden there was this flood of library copies for sale online. If you can get that, they're quite cheap, and the hard copy of the book is lovely because it's as you say, it's full of very nice illustrations. But if you can't get that, then get it on Kindle or Nook.
Yeah, very, very, very interesting, and it's something that, especially if you get the actual book, the hardcover, you can keep for years to come, and everybody really enjoys looking at stuff like that. Especially, you can sit down, and I know Eric really enjoys reading it. In fact, he's told me quite a few times where I've said, "Hey, where does that come from?" And of course, he grabs the encyclopedia, and there it is. And it really has actually come in handy for the show during this Christmas season as well.
It's a wonderful book, I must say.
Yeah, I mean,
it really is. It's so fun to just dip into it. You don't have to worry about how far you get. Always interesting, always well written. Truly, without hyperbole, one of my favorite books. I have one more question.
Sure.
Where is Christmas heading? Where do you think we'll be in 50 years?
Well, Christmas is now the #1 festival in the world. And there's always going to be a tension between the two parts of it, between the religious part and the midwinter festival part. And the coexistence of those two parts make it wonderful. So I think Christmas is going to be with us for centuries. The invention of Santa Claus was an act of genius. The decision by parents to keep this mythology alive is a wonderful thing to observe. How parents unselfishly deflect gratitude onto an imaginary magical creature is quite a special thing.
It is, and it's good to hear that Christmas will be with us forever. I mean, it's not going anywhere, and I know that Happy Holidays is what's in vogue, or this and that, the PC stuff. But Christmas will always be there. The traditions, in one form or another, will always be there. But I'd like to thank Gerry Bowler, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I mean, it has been something that I have really enjoyed this.
My pleasure. I love talking about it.
And, on behalf of myself and of course, my co-host, Mr. Eric Olson, the poobah of Christmas, we would like to thank you for listening to this edition of After Hours AM. Again, thank you for making us one of the top shows of its kind out there. Without you guys, we wouldn't be where we are at all. We'd just be talking to ourselves anyway. So that being said, thanks again, and everyone have a great week. Take care of each other, love each other, and pick up your copy of the World Encyclopedia of Christmas. Thank you for listening to this edition of After Hours AM, and please remember to like us on Facebook and also follow us over on Twitter.